Recently, I made banana bread. And I may yet again. You ever notice how foreseeing a prophecy and setting a goal are kind of indistinguishable from each other? It's the same thing, just perceived as either coming from within you or from outside of you, either moving forward through time or backward through time. Which letter of the alphabet do you think knows the best spells? Q, right? Why is that? Remember, best spells is different from most magical, because if we're talking about just pure chaotic power, O obviously is the most magically powerful. That's an open portal through which infinity is pouring. Q has this line negotiating between the realm of infinite magic and the realm of mortal conscious desire. The line in between is the magic wand. Twitter is good for networking, but bad for your soul. You know, maybe ingesting an infinity of inflammatory opinions penned by people you do not know is not the first thing you should do when you wake up. Perhaps plugging into the endless anxiety amplification edutainment machine is not the final thing you should do before going to bed. Spending your precious drops of consciousness performing your fleeting feelings as public statements and sandblasting the wrinkles of your brain with other people's low effort intellectual excrements is not what being a person is about. Next time you're alone and you feel compelled to take out your phone, stop for a second. Think about what you're thinking. Feel what you're feeling. Write down the thought you're thinking or the feel you're feeling on a piece of paper with a pen and look at it. This is your consciousness reflected back at you. This is called having a private life. Maybe we could make time to do this once a day or once a week. Now, with all that said, let's look at some tweets that changed my aesthetic life for the better. The first is when Grimes accidentally called Minions aesthetic terrorism in public. Minions are aesthetic terrorism. This did not need to exist. Oh, fuck, this was supposed to be for my burner account. I should delete this. Okay, I'm so sorry. Just like that, brand deals, just up in smoke. The philosopher Miranda Fricker coined this concept called hermeneutical injustice. This is when you lack the social language to communicate what you were experiencing to other people, thereby isolating you in your experience and rendering you unable to name it, understand it, share it with others, do something about it. If there's no socially understood name for the thing you're experiencing, or if you do not know the name for the thing you're experiencing, you're damned to experience it alone, wondering if it's even real, if you even deserve to feel this way about this thing you can't even articulate. The common example often cited for this is the phrase sexual harassment, which was invented as recently as 1975 at Cornell University by Working Women United. They were inspired to do so by the case of Carmita Wood, who quit her job at Cornell University due to constant sexual advances, remarks, and touches from her superior. Unfortunately for Wood, she was unable to express the real reason she was forced to leave because there wasn't language for this thing she was experiencing. So you quit because he likes you? He complimented you? He stood close to you? I'm gonna put personal reasons here. When Working Women United popularized the phrase sexual harassment, they labeled this common experience that women across workplaces have had for a long time, placing the onus on the men in power who perpetuate this experience, and thereby overcoming the hermeneutical injustice that made such oppressive experiences difficult to combat in the past. So I'm saying, when Grimes called Minions aesthetic terrorism, that gave me the language to express something I experienced. This is what's happening to me when I'm in a bar, happily sipping a mojito and writing my philosophy, and then the house music shuts off and a white dude with dreadlocks plugs in an acoustic guitar and starts playing Love Yourself by Justin Bieber really loudly, replacing the word love with fuck, clearly very proud of himself for this innovation. Some of you need to leave my senses alone. And this is also how we all feel about Jordan Peterson's new suits. This does violence to my eyeballs.
I feel very upset with you. I don't like what you did. And I don't want to see this again.
Now, fashion really isn't my primary medium. I lack the expertise and verbiage to express myself within it, so I can't really say why this is ugly, just that I feel it is. But this, of course, leaves me wide open to the dismissive retort. That's subjective. You say it's ugly, that's just your opinion. Oh. Say it ain't so. Haven't you heard? I'm the aesthetic philosophy bridge troll. You don't get to opt out of disagreements on beauty with me until you've answered my riddles straight. Admittedly, as previously established, I am not particularly gifted or experienced in this particular medium, so I did bring backup. See, one man on Twitter has been waging war against Peterson's new suits. And he's been trending. There's a very painful period when you see guys start to pay attention to clothes and they start to dress worse than they did before they started paying attention to clothes. Part 1, order meets chaos. Derek Guy is a man who likely has a face, although we're not sure about that. What we know for sure is that he has 3 health bars, very long combos, and he hasn't been killed yet. If you get the notification that you've been quote tweeted by @dyeworkwear, you should be concerned. Belt should match your shoes. Should wear over the calf socks. Wrong size, you dumbass! Because you have your opinions, but Derek Guy has principles. But before we explain what those principles are, check out this cool portal I found. Who looks better here? In your opinion, I'm just wondering. You pick one? All right, cool. You want to take another run through the portal? Before we go on, which of these two outfits look better to you? Subjectively, in your opinion, no wrong answers. If you subjectively, arbitrarily prefer the first two suits to the second two suits, that's fine. You are entitled to your opinion. If you like your thing and you're happy, no one can take that away from you. You should go find the people that agree with you on aesthetics, and then you can all work on an aesthetic philosophy that helps you look like Ron DeSantis, which, according to you, is a desirable thing to look like. On the other hand, if you're like me, and you think the second two suits look better, then we can now discuss amongst ourselves why we might feel this way. So isn't that nice? Our subjectivities are perfectly intact. There was no need to be upset. Yet, we're just self-reporting and intersubjectively sorting and pursuing our rational self-interest as individualized, atomized agents without making any assertions about the objective ideal state of reality. With our subjectivities entirely intact, it stands to reason that if we agree with Derek Guy on aesthetics in these two cases, then we might agree with Derek Guy on aesthetics in more cases, and we would benefit from hearing him out on what he believes the underlying explanatory principles are that drive our aesthetic preferences across cases. So in case you're interested in what may be influencing your meaningless opinion, here are a couple things that guide Derek's appraisals in these examples. If you pick the second in both examples, then we have the same aesthetics. In that case, here is a guiding principle. A business jacket is not the same as a sport coat. Let's take these two examples. Which looks better to you? If you choose the second, it's because that's a sport coat. The business suit jacket is associated with the business suit, which is a particular cultural language. Conventionally, in this cultural language, it is almost always awkward to wear a business suit jacket without matching color pants. What is the difference between a suit jacket and a sport coat? Well, a suit is a garment where the jacket and the pants are cut from the same cloth, and the two are meant to be worn together. A sport coat is intended to be worn pants cut from a different cloth. If you wear a suit jacket on its own, it has to convincingly pass as a sport coat. It can't look like an orphaned suit jacket, which is a suit jacket that has lost its accompanying pants. These outfits look bad because it looks like the person spilled something on their suit pants and had to change out of them. Another thing you'll notice is that although both of these jackets are buttoned up at the belly, only one of them looks like it will pop open if you poke the wearer on the nose. Can't you just imagine it? Ron's jacket is too tight. If you look at any of the professional politician businessmen that he is incompetently emulating, you will see that they tend to wear matching pants with the jacket and a much cozier fit of jacket. Overly tight suits are a frequent and fervent target of Derek's incinerating ire. This is what some of you look like in your skinny suits. As you can see, Conor McGregor is a veritable mess on this front. Pants so tight I can read your text messages. He looks like a saran-wrapped sandwich. It's kind of common knowledge to the point of cliche that men used to dress better than they do now. Sometimes we attribute that to the fact that men wear suits less, but even when they do wear suits, they look worse. Derek Guy wagers that a major contributing factor to this malaise is that we keep jamming our men into these ultra-tight suits. Suit couldn't be tighter without being inside him. Of course, you can always argue cultural relativism. That's just your opinion. Your preference for roomier vintage suits is just archaic elitist nostalgia, close-mindedness in the face of inevitable changes in taste over time. To which I would reply, let's put it through the portal test. How do we like our new tight suits compared to old Hollywood suits? In your opinion, you're wearing a suit, you're going for classical. Why opt for the rural 8th grade graduation mod? The tight suit epidemic is really just symptomatic of an overall cultural preference for tighter and skimpier clothes, but this has contributed to our modern malaise in fashion as we've abandoned the concepts of shape and drape. Have you ever felt like the average person dressed better in the past? In my opinion, the reason has nothing to do with respectability, body shape, or even suits. It has to do with the loss of what I call shape and drape. When people admire fashions of the past, they often bring up issues unrelated to clothes, like respectability, politics, body type. What they're actually admiring are the shapes of these clothes and how they drape. Notice the procession of wonderful shapes here. The shape refers to the silhouette. What shape do your clothes create that are not just the shape of your body? Is there any shape to your clothes, or are they all just skin suits of different colors? Drape refers to how the fabric hangs and moves. Does it hang? Does it drape at all? Or does it just stick to your skin slightly sweatily? A favorite example of Derek Guy's for perfect, clean, subtle drape is this incredibly dripped out photo set of Jackie Gleason golfing. The portal moment that really cemented the centrality of the silhouette inside of my soul was the side-by-side comparison between Sonic the Hedgehog and Meg Ryan. Devastating. The only difference between these outfits is the shape of the actual garment. Shape and drape, slim fit. Shape and drape, slim fit. So this is all really good and fun and useful. If you agree with Derek Guy on aesthetics, he has tons of tips and tricks for menswear. But things get deeper and more difficult when we move away from these obvious examples towards some finer examples. We're forced to engage with the real substance of what Derek Guy is saying. And it's a little more than just subjective arbitrary taste preference assigned at Portal, which takes us to the second tweet that changed my aesthetic life, when Derek Guy dunked on the Good Doctor. There's a very painful period when you see guys start to pay attention to clothes and they start to dress worse than they did before they started paying attention to clothes. Portal test it. I don't really know about this one. I'm not saying the second is better. I'm saying I don't know. Like, they both kind of look bad in different ways. Or maybe it's not the clothes at all. Maybe I'm just noticing that he looks sweaty and sad in the first pic, but healthy and happy in the second pic. But I'm not sure that the first outfit is better than the second. Is it? I mean, the coat's too big, right? I've posted the photo on the left before, and people have replied with, the coat is too big, but the overall outfit has social meaning. It reflects his social identity as a normal dude in academia. The one on the right has no social meaning. Dress is not an art project. What does it mean by that? Part 2, dress is not an art project. Here we begin to dive into Derek Guy's full actual philosophy of fashion, so it's time to stop reading tweets and take this shit seriously. His actual writing on aesthetics can be found on his blog Die Workwear, or in his contributions to other fashion publications like Put This On. His cornerstone piece, in my opinion, is How to Develop Good Taste Part 1, released August 26, 2022. I highly recommend it if you're interested in stuff or things. It's a historical and philosophical analysis of what is counted as good taste over the recent centuries, and it's rather staggering in its simultaneous scope and succinctness. Derek deftly contrasts Kant's critique of judgment with Pierre Bourdieu's distinction, and fortifies it all with a historical crash course on the emergence of industrial capitalism. If you don't normally read this kind of stuff, it's a little dry, but informative and worth it. And if you do normally read this kind of stuff, it's very fun and conversational.
This is boring.
For you.
Immanuel Kant, at first glance, seems like an unusual figure to reference in menswear. The kind of guy you hate but need. He's not fun to watch Love Island with, but you know he's right.
Why you boring me?
You should be grateful.
Derek tells a 3-part progressive story, from innate taste to expert taste to arbitrary taste. And these aren't Derek Guy's categories. They are my categories that I extracted from his essay. I am editorializing. I'm doing an interpret for storytelling purpose. I love you, and we will be together forever until the frogs come. We begin with innate taste, which thrived throughout the British Empire during the Enlightenment. What's the sign for thriving? At this time, it was believed that good taste was accurate apprehension of objective beauty. The principles of beauty were unchanging, universal, and found in nature. According to this philosophy of pure, transcendent aesthetics, any sophisticated, unbiased palate can intuitively detect true beauty, and true beauty never changes. Not everyone is as gifted or pure of conscience as to perfectly perceive this objective universal beauty, but an unworthy judge's subjective dissent does not change the truth of universal beauty. And because these true judges must be rational and disinterested, the arts are really best left to the royals and aristocrats, as the peasants have a tendency to muddy their aspirations with petty material concerns. They're too caught up with the needs and temptations of the flesh to appreciate pure aesthetics. Good taste is objective. The queen has it, the poors don't. That's why the queen's the queen and the poors are the poors. Everything just makes sense.
No!
The second era is the expert taste epoch, which is found in the 1900s in America, where a strong liberal democratic spirit reigned. This was a time where good taste was still thought to be objective, but it was less conflated with good breeding and innate intuition. The laws of etiquette and taste used to be kept carefully behind closed doors where the poors can't reach them, but now those doors began to be lockpicked and ransacked by the rapscallions. The dominant philosophy of the time turned away from the idea that good taste was innate and intuitive, and instead It was believed that taste was a skill that could be learned. In this march toward modernity, an army of Americans, mostly made of women, geared up to help ordinary people dress better. They were writers, teachers, and retailers who authored thousands of books, pamphlets, and magazine articles on the art of looking good. They taught university classes, hosted radio shows, and incorporated their lessons into weekly clothing club meetings. For these style experts, the message was simple. Knowledge, not money, is the key to style. Good taste was no longer transcendently spiritual and intuitive, now it was transcendently rational. The poors could have good taste. We just need to explain it to them. So, in the early 1900s, popular works were published like Emily Post's Etiquette or Harriet and Vetta Goldstein's Art in Everyday Life. These books rendered the principles of good taste entirely explicit, insisting that taste was not a matter of elite innate intuition, but of learned expert skill. Importantly, this left the concept of objectively good taste entirely intact. It just abstracted good taste into principles that could be applied anywhere for anyone. Finally, we enter the postmodern phase, the phase in which we still exist. Arbitrary taste. Towards the conclusion of the 20th century, the concept of objectivity began to take a severe beating. The cultural revolutions of the 60s signaled an ever-increasing consciousness that what the elite classes declared was objective was in fact not. Racism was not objective. Segregation was not objective. Sexism was not objective. Religion was not objective. Sexual morality was not objective. These things were merely presented as objective to reinforce the status quo, to ratify the supremacy of those already at the top of the hierarchy. There was widespread realization that these social institutions were suppressing the freedom of the individual and marginalizing the lower classes. This cultural revolution looked like an explosion in transgressive fashion, the proliferation of a plurality of subcultures, and rapid progress in terms of social justice. We shifted from a centralized standard of taste defined top-down by the elites towards a subjective standard of taste defined by every individual within their own subcultures. Derek Guy cites Pierre Bourdieu's distinction to summarize this subjective, status-motivated definition of taste.
For Bourdieu, taste is about class. His main criticism against Kant's pure aesthetics, and the dress doctors and post-war menswear writers, if he had addressed them directly, is that they conceal the class origins and interests of their taste by constructing a seemingly objective and disinterested facade. In this view, there is no such thing as genuinely good taste. There is only legitimate taste, which presents itself as the universally valid form of good taste, but in reality, it is nothing more than the taste of the ruling class. Having a sophisticated palate for French cuisine and fine wine signals that you are a part of the cultural elite, whereas having an equally refined palate for Vietnamese food does not confer the same status.
And this cultural revolution and philosophical deconstruction of objectively good taste is where we get the modern mantra that art is subjective. That's just your opinion. This is why nowadays, when someone claims there are objective standards of beauty, they are met with widespread suspicion and derision. Objectively beautiful? Don't you know art is subjective? Are you doing an elitism? Are you doing a pretentious? Are you doing a gatekeeping? This is why now, in every Anthony Fantano album review, without fail, in the description, the final line is the disclaimer, y'all know this is just my opinion, right? It's just my opinion.
My opinion!
And Derek Guy believes, overall, this has been excellent for humanity and excellent for fashion. The democratization of fashion has been a cumulative thing. First, it gave individuals, including the poor, greater freedom in dress, both in terms of personal expression and opting out. The social pressure to conform has also lost much of its force. Just as we accept people of different backgrounds, we're more accepting today of the variety in appearance. And for the fashion enthusiast, the world is a richer, more interesting place. And yeah, I like being able to wear whatever I want.
Non-gender conforming people feel beautiful should be allowed.
I like being alive today where I am. However, this lack of socially enforced standards of dress has other effects, like the quality of suit tailoring plummeting into the earth.
Brother, what's that?
The realization that taste is subjective is a powerful tool of liberation, but it's also one that depletes the fucks that we have to give for upholding culturally rich standards of taste. Freedom comes with decadence and disrespect for tradition. It's good and it's bad, but it's good. It's easy to be cranky about the death of suits, and probably telling that some who worship the suit also harbor illiberal attitudes about other things. But the decline of the suit has been accompanied by the freedoms we all enjoy. It's hard to imagine that men and women could have achieved the last 50 years of progress on around gender and sexual equality while wearing the two-piece suits and sundresses of the 50s. Ideas about the fluidity of gender and sexual identity today are also deeply tied to clothing choices. So, what's the solution? How does Derek Guy enthusiastically co-sign Bourdieu's distinction while also still insisting that you should wear your suits properly the way the elites told us to? Well, he completely accepts that the whole concept of taste is just about being one of the elites. To exhibit good taste is to put yourself in closer proximity to elites, if not to be within their company. The difference to him is that we now get to choose which elites. We can decide that we want to signal proximity to the elite class of American businessmen in the golden age of capitalism. And if you decide to do that, you better do it correctly. But you can also decide to signal like the elites of hip-hop culture in the 90s, in which case, you better do that correctly, or you're gonna fucking get your ass destroyed in this freestyle battle.
Listen, my loves, we need to stop. We need to boycott that man's barbershop.
You can decide to dress like the elites of drag, and you better do that correctly, or you're gonna get read for filth.
Shut up! Stop reading me!
You can dress correctly in streetwear, or workwear, or 2014 Tumblr core tennis skirts, down to the bloody knee. I'm fluent. Notice this is still a bounded activity. You can't just arbitrarily wear and do whatever you want and declare it high status. People need to agree with you, or else it doesn't function as a social signal of taste. Good taste requires two things. One, proposing an identity that happens to be valued in your community of choice. 2, using your lifestyle choices to clearly, congruently, and authentically communicate that identity. You can spin plates with no pants on in a train station, screaming the ABCs backwards at the top of your lungs. And you can believe that this is an elite thing to do, but no one will agree with you, and eventually you'll be escorted off the premises. Being high status in a community of one is not high status, it's just being insane.
It's also no fun to be the only member of a crazy club.
Dressing tastefully still means dressing tastefully according to someone. It means signaling allegiance to the elites of some cultural community, declaring yourself to be part of something. And that's all Derek Guy is asking you to do.
You have to form a sentence to communicate something, and you can be creative with the way that you compose that sentence, but it still has to be somewhat culturally legible.
So, knowing this, we now can see his issue with Jordan Peterson's apparent glow-up. Regardless of what you individually, arbitrarily, intuitively, impulsively, subjectively prefer, one of these outfits has distinct social meaning and the other does not. This is an academic, an intellectual, an educator. I know this guy. He's gonna change my life in a classroom, Dead Poet Society style. This man, the only thing that comes to mind is Batman villain, which is why people keep saying that, but like, that's the only cultural language available with which to interpret this statement. But Batman villain is not a real social identity. It is higher effort and more intentional than his previous garb, but tragically, this only means that he has abandoned his subconscious fluency in a cultural language in favor of doing some meaningless macaroni paintings without any respect to any cultural language.
Most creative ideas are wrong.
Dress is not an art project. It's language, and you're babbling incoherently. Provided all that, if you still don't care, if you're truly self-satisfied in your subjectivity, decoupled from any social identity, if you are happy on your side of the portal with Ron DeSantis and Jordan Peterson suits, I can't arrest you no matter how much I'd like to. If you don't care about developing your fashion taste and you just want to forever make macaroni paintings on the floor, coddled by the knowledge that these are your feelings and you can't be wrong about your feelings, you're allowed to do that. But I believe art is about so much more than just doing whatever you want, insulated inside of your impenetrable, intrinsically justified subjectivity. Art is also about learning a language and expressing yourself through that language. It's about discovering yourself outside of yourself, discovering yourself inside of other people. It's not about bluntly imposing your will upon the world, shielding yourself with a philosophy that says no one can tell you that you're wrong. It's about becoming part of the world.
Get inside, tell me how to play right now. No one taught us how to play right, tell me how to play.
The endings of Grease and High School Musical 1 are very different philosophically.
Like
This isn't going where I thought it would go.
In Greece, a high school boy and girl are in love and meant to be, but they cannot be because culture. One of them is a greaser. Leather jackets, cars, penis time! The other is a pastel poodle skirt prep. Keep those legs covered, you slut! Greasers and preps can't be together because they have different interests and values which are explicitly represented in their clothing. By the end of the film, the greaser has resigned to compromise for love, transitioning from a greaser to a jock. All for a chick!
What is this, Halloween?
This is depicted as a kind of tragedy as he turns his back on the penis pals.
Oh, come on, guys. You know you mean a lot to me. It's just as Sandy does too.
But thank God, the real resolution of the movie isn't coming. The woman renounces all of her values and 180 transforms entirely into a bad bitch. She adopts every single greaser cultural signal simultaneously and is immediately reborn as a sex icon with a correspondingly updated vernacular.
Tell me about it, stud.
So, triumphantly, our boy can immediately discard his single symbol of compromise and become a greaser once more. Notice, there is no change expected from either of these subcultures. What makes a greaser and a prep is never questioned. These are like objective features of the environment that must be navigated through and around. Individuals must change their allegiance from one culture to another, inheriting every social value and aesthetic signifier that comes with their new selected social identity. I got you. Then they fly into the sun and presumably die burning. I didn't grow up with this movie. This is not my culture. Fast forward to 2006. In High School Musical, a boy and girl are in love and meant to be, but they cannot be because culture. Basketball and science can't be together because they have different interests and values which are kind of represented in their clothing. I mean, it seems a little less distinctive now. At the end of the film, the characters unite and sing a song together just the same, but Basketball Boy doesn't change his outfit. Neither does Science Girl. No one changes anything. He just starts singing, which he shouldn't do because basketball. And everyone realizes that it doesn't matter how you dress or what strange mix of interests you have across subcultures. Society shouldn't keep you from doing all the separate things that you like. Just a generation ago, enthusiastic compliance with subcultural standards was framed as a moment of triumph. Now, conformity to subcultural standards is literally the enemy of the film, with a villain song and everything. So I'm saying Grease is a depiction of democracy, cultures negotiating between each other, whereas High School Musical is a depiction of libertarianism. Individuals freed from the shackles of culture. If this is arbitrary taste, this is expert taste, and innate taste would be like Romeo and Juliet. That's two people daring to defy the objective laws of the universe and literally dying for asserting their subjectivity. Again, this is probably a positive development. High School Musical's moral is more reflective of the morals of my age. I do prefer people not to be punished and flattened into conformity by pre-existing assumptions and social pressures. I do. But at what point does freeing yourself from society become abandoning society altogether?
All eyes on me, all eyes on me.
In her 1999 essay, The Museum of Me, the technologist Ellen Ullman remembers a television advertisement. A grim, apocalyptic scene. Chained men crawl in the mud, dragging the chariots of their betters through a wasteland. The sky is shot black. Authoritarian soldiers enforce conformity. Mythical symbols of tradition rear menacingly. The protagonist waits in an impossibly long line at the bank. When she finally reaches the front of this monotonous line, the bank teller there to help her is dead, a spider crawling over his bone-white petrified flesh. She ages rapidly as scarlet gatekeepers laugh at her eternal weight, sealing the vaults. We peel back as this awful city is shown in looming scope, inaccessible, impossible, oppressive, but we keep pulling away until we escape the city into green hills, a cozy, colorful home, and inside, your computer.
You can do it all from home with the world's #1 selling home computer, Packard Bell. Wouldn't you rather be at home?
There's a shocking disgust with society displayed here, and a promise that the internet will hold you inside of yourself, declaring in no uncertain terms that culture and society are a burden. Isn't it disgusting how you used to have to go into the bank and talk to someone to use your money? You had to go into a library and ask for help to get information? Wouldn't you prefer to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it without talking to anyone? Isn't it awful to rely on others? The ultimate suburbanization of existence. A retreat from the friction of the social space for the supposed idol of private ease. It is a view that depends on the idea that desire is not social, not stimulated by what others want, but generated internally, and that the satisfaction of desires is not dependent upon other persons, organizations, structures, or governments. It is a profoundly libertarian vision, and it is the message that underlies all the mythologizing about the web. The idea that the civic space is dead, useless, dangerous, and the only place of pleasure and satisfaction is your home. In this sense, the ideal of the internet represents the very opposite of democracy, which is a method for resolving difference in a relatively orderly manner through the mediation of unavoidable civil associations. I'll get mine and you'll get yours. There is no need for compromise and discussion. I don't have to tolerate you and you don't have to tolerate me. No need to care for my neighbor next door when I can stay with my chosen neighbors in the ether, my email friends and the visitors to sites I visit, people who think as I do, who want what I want. We'll each click for our individual joys, and our only dispute may come if something doesn't get delivered on time. Wouldn't you really rather be at home? No longer will your taste be limited or influenced by magazines or critics or stores or tailors or theaters or offices or arbitrary etiquette imposed upon you by society. Now, you've got it all at your fingertips. Infinite access to whatever you want. No rooms with rules and biases. No gatekeepers between you and yourself.
Tell me what I'm feeling right now. I don't know what I'm feeling right now.
In 1969, the feminist artist Merle Latterman Euclid published the Manifesto for Maintenance Art. 1969! That's part of the title. This manifesto wrestled between her two conflicting social identities at the time, one of an artist and one of a mother. Nice. As an artist, she felt compelled to innovate, distinguish herself, invent, deconstruct social norms, rebel, assert her individuality. But as a mother, she felt compelled to care for things already in existence, maintain, preserve, endure. So she decided to name these two competing compulsions, the death instinct and the life instinct. The death instinct, separation, individuality, avant-garde par excellence, to follow one's own path to death, do your own thing, dynamic change. The life instinct, unification, the eternal return, the perpetuation and maintenance of the species, survival systems and operations, equilibrium. The life instinct sheep cares what other people think. It goes along with the status quo uncritically. It mimics the crowd, repeating patterns of old, trusting that what exists is already what needs to. But the death instinct individual rages against the machine. It challenges authority. It asserts its own subjectivity in defiance of the arbitrary social norms that have been set before it. This manifesto was part of a proposal for an exhibit at a gallery, and it intended to resolve the conflict between her death instinct artist duties and her life instinct mother duties by just fusing them. Instead of trying to satisfy these two instincts separately, she would just perform her motherly duties at the gallery. As the art, she would show up to the gallery every day and just take care of it.
I can collide freedom into its opposite and name necessity art. Why? Because I am the artist and I say so.
Now, I ask you, are you more of a death instinct person or a life instinct person? Me, I'm death instinct. Whether I like it or not, have difficulty following tradition. I am uncontrollably socially disruptive out of loyalty to my own perception. I have an abundance of personal goals, a very strong sense of internal value, and a martyr complex. If I was born one generation ago, I would have been that guy in Dirty Dancing bucking against the oppressive establishment so I can express myself in my glorious subjectivity. But I wasn't born back then. I was born in the late 90s. It's my birthday today as I'm recording this. I never struggled with being shoved into a boxy category that limited my choice and self-expression. I was raised on the internet. I grew up with a brand new thing called an iPod Touch and the personalized newsfeed that came with it. I fell in love with hip-hop music and hip-hop culture, not because any of my friends in real life shared that interest, not because I had friends, not because I had any peers or mentors from that culture. There was no real-life social experience in my day-to-day that could real-time refine my sensibilities in that culture as a participant. I experienced the culture as a passive observer, as a spectator, an isolated agent consuming one post at a time. Because I was lonely and weird, the only brown kid in the all-white town I lived in at the time, the white kids at school called me the N-word, soft A, affectionately, but effectively, I ended up pouring myself into the internet more and more, consuming fragments of cultures that weren't mine, searching for identity, meaning, and belonging that wasn't coming to me in this embodied mortal coil. As a result, I became an awkward, ambling cultural nomad split between 2014 indie pop grunge Tumblr, datpiff.com, and suburban American Protestant Christianity. And Lego Star Wars. How does this person dress? I'll tell you, incoherently. I was mentally ill, striking out socially in my real life, being fed culture in shattered fragments, a la carte through a device that neither I nor my mother understood. And I hated being told art is subjective, because it felt like people were giving me permission to be unique or weird or eclectic. But I never struggled to be any of those things. I struggled to connect with people. I struggled to belong. I was attracted to art not as a tool to distinguish myself further from others. To me, it was a tool to understand and be understood. 'Cause not to flex, but I was born with the death instinct. Then raised in algorithms with the death instinct programmed into them. And I didn't feel special. I just felt alone.
All eyes on me, all eyes on me.
As you noted, the suit used to be governed by time, place, and occasion. That if you're going to a certain kind of event and you're of a certain kind of social standing, you're expected to wear certain things. That essentially broke down as we move forward through that kind of 20th century dress history. And then we have all of these proliferations of subcultural dress. So if you're a punk, you dress punk. And if you're, skater, you dress skater. And now, as you noted, we don't really have those things anymore, which makes it very difficult for people to know how to get dressed. When I was growing up, even if you weren't interested in clothing, you were essentially kind of guided on how to dress by virtue of being part of some kind of subcultural group. And to me, those kind of gentle guidelines were no different than the guidelines that people that wore suits had in the early 20th century. They knew that if you showed up to a certain place and you're of a certain group, you had to look a certain way. And we don't really have those guidelines anymore, which I think has made it very, very difficult to know what to wear, how to combine things. And the market has become much more bifurcated. If you go all the way back into the early 20th century, many people just went to a tailor. They had clothes made in the home. And then over the course of the 20th century, people could go to Levi's to get a workwear look, and they could go to Brooks Brothers to get like an American Tailor look. But now you buy shirts from shirt companies and jeans from jean companies and socks from sock companies, and you often buy them online where you can't try them on, you can't feel them, they arrive at your door, and then you're expected to not only put together a beautiful outfit, you're also expected to build a whole wardrobe through this kind of weird kind of like magpie system. And I think it has made getting dressed so much more difficult. And I think it's partly the reason why we have this kind of like ecological disaster of people cycling through so many clothes, because we are essentially playing with identity. We don't know what we want to express. We don't know how to get dressed. We don't know what to wear to certain things.
I struggled with the medium of fashion for my entire adult life. I didn't understand it, and I didn't understand what I didn't understand. I'd ask my friends who dress very well to take me shopping and help me out, and they would constantly say, make a mood board. What do you like? Just try things out, see if you like them. There's no rules, express yourself. I'd be like, but I want to do it right, and they'd be like, there's no right, no wrong, it's all subjective. This didn't help me at all. The impression that I got from these friends was that they were fluent in a language that I was not, but they didn't know it. They had a baseline familiarity with a bunch of different aesthetics and styles and traditions and customs, but this was invisible to them. And culture had been telling them again and again, art is subjective, don't be elitist. Art is subjective, don't be elitist. So they thought the thing they're supposed to tell me is do whatever you want, no wrong answers, work it out for yourself. Don't let me tell you what to do. Unfortunately for me, someone who does not speak these languages intuitively, this is not helpful. My right to say whatever I want is worthless if I don't speak your language. I don't need freedom of expression. I need fucking ESL. I'm out here alone in open water without a life jacket, drowning in choppy waves, begging for a boat to throw me a life raft, and the people on the boat are like, there's really no objective difference between being on a boat and drowning. It depends on what you prefer. Try swimming in any direction. See what you like. Don't let me tell you what to do. Motherfucker, I want to be on your boat. I want to stop speaking gibberish and start speaking in actual sentences. You know, Derek Guy often cites this sentence written by linguist and wise old tree Noam Chomsky. Colorless green ideas sleep furiously. This is a sentence that makes grammatical sense, but has no discernible social meaning. It is words in the right order, but it communicates nothing. It's words for the sake of words. It references nothing real. It connects you to nothing and to no one. It's just noise. It could even be pretty noise. I guess that's in the eye of the beholder, but it doesn't mean anything. And that's what I realize now, what made me feel this pit in my stomach as I was trying to dress myself. As I wanted it to mean something, and I could tell it didn't. Being told it's all subjective and I'm not doing anything wrong, I just have to try more articles of clothing on, felt like swapping out the color in Noam Chomsky's nonsense sentence. Colorless blue ideas sleep furiously. Colorless yellow ideas sleep furiously. Colorless blue ideas sleep angrily. Sometimes I found something I liked, but couldn't shake this feeling that I wasn't doing the real thing. By high school, I at least discovered I liked eyeshadow. Something about this felt right. Something about this stuck. In some small way, I finally felt a bit like myself. I remember coming home with it on one day and my mom being taken aback for a second, then being like, you look like Adam Ant. I love Adam Ant. So I Google Adam Ant, I listen to Adam Ant, and I do not love Adam Ant. Not my thing. I remain on this side of the subjective portal, and I move on with my life. I am borrowing my female friends' clothes constantly, feeling particularly free to do so when I am performing music on stage. After one such performance, a dude in the audience walks up to me and goes, "So you like Bowie?" And I said, "What?" And he said, "Bowie." And I said, like the thing they put in the water so that boats don't get lost. And he said, "No, like David Bowie. You don't know David Bowie?" And I said, "No, sorry. I only listen to what Tumblr and r/hip-hop heads tell me to listen to. Do you like Marina and the Diamonds and Big Crit?" So I Googled David Bowie. I listen to David Bowie, and I do not like David Bowie. I move on with my life. As I get older, I dress better, but purely on a trial and error basis. My wardrobe is overflowing with single articles of clothing that I never wear because they tickled my fancy once, but never again, and they don't work with anything else. I didn't know why I bought them. I still haven't found whatever it is I am looking for. I still feel the emptiness, the yearning, the fucking yearning.
Yearn? Do I yearn?
And at some point, I'm reading Status and Culture by David Marks with a bunch of Derek Guy's sociological theory of dress swimming in my mind. And it hits me. Stop thinking about what you like and don't like and just look at what you are. Is there a place in society for androgynously dressed, histrionic, flamboyant freaks with obnoxious eye makeup? Yeah. Adam Ant. All of these 80s pop and punk artists that my mom loves, she subjectively enjoys these artists, and I don't. But what I like doesn't matter. I occupy the same social role as them. I love hip-hop. I study philosophy, but as soon as I started donning makeup daily, I was already counter-signaling both of those identities. I do not look like the elites of those cultures. Those cultural allegiances of mine come as a flavorful surprise in spite of my appearance. They are conspicuous aesthetic absences. What I don't look out of place as at all is a musician. In particular, a new romantic 80s pop musician that has a surprising amount of privileged knowledge about rap and academia. These motherfuckers with their big hair and glittery eyes and tight pants and big jackets. This is me. This has always been me. I'm part of history. I remember being in church with glitter on my face and an older man eyeing me suspiciously until he learned I'm a musician. Then he relaxes completely. He can see me now. I remember being told on multiple occasions that I remind someone of Jack Sparrow in affect and appearance. And I remember being annoyed and kind of offended, but now I just think, Jack Sparrow is like Adam Ant, and I am like Adam Ant. In 2019, Euphoria dropped, and people started telling me that I'm like Euphoria vibes, and I found this annoying because I was wearing makeup before Euphoria dropped, but now I think, yes, fluorescent lighting, pills, mental illness, internet addiction, and glitter? That's my generation. That's my culture. Hell yes, I have the e-girl bleach stripe. That's my generation. That's my culture. I remember shortly after these brain crystallizations were all happening, I got invited to a black tie party and they provided instructions on how the men should dress. And I found that offensive as one of those they them type people. And so I did the men's uniform. I dressed appropriately, but added the makeup, a tiara, high heels, and a purse. I'm speaking language.
I think my one advice is really to just think of dress as social language. You can develop personal taste as a person that's informed on culture and art and society and not pay attention to trends, but also dress in a way that is a reflection of both culture and your own taste and your kind of how you see yourself in culture. I think when you dress in that sort of way, when you think of dress as social language, it both becomes more legible and more interesting. And it also allows you to ignore trends.
That's absolutely perfect answer. Thank you so much, Derek. It's a pleasure to speak to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Folks, I am still not that good at fashion. There is so much that I do not know. But even though I'm not fluent, and I'm certainly not fluent in multiple languages, I at least know I'm learning to speak. Rejecting the question, what do you like? And instead turning to, what are you socially, was such a relief for me. I see myself and the rewired cyborgs of my generation as in a crisis of life instinct. We too often feel like we are not part of history. We feel disconnected from the world physically. Subcultures no longer assist us in learning how to dress or learning how to think about ourselves. Dress, for me, is not something I want to end with me. I don't want it to be about what I want. I want it to be a religious performance that signals my allegiance with something bigger than me, signals my standing and belonging in the world. I want it to be something that sticks me back in history after Silicon Valley unstuck me. Recently, I was walking in a new city that I ain't been in before, and some rough-looking dude, perhaps unhoused, was on the curb on his like third 11 a.m. beer, and he called out to me as I walked by, "Hey, it's like Duran Duran or something." And I said, exactly like Duran Duran. The internet ideal represents a retreat not only from political life, but also from culture, from that tumultuous conversation in which we try to talk to one another about our shared experiences. As members of a culture, we see the same movie, read the same book, hear the same string quartet. Although it is enormously difficult for us to agree on what we might have seen, read, or heard, it is out of that difficult conversation that real culture arises. Whether or not we come to an agreement or understanding, even if some decide that understanding and meaning are impossible, we are still sitting around the same campfire. Part 4, but really, these suits are satanic. One more thing about fucking Jordan Peterson. A staunch and bitter defender of Jordan Peterson may fire back against this comparison between Jordan Peterson's suits and Noam Chomsky's nonsense sentence. Cause Chomsky's sentence is supposed to be meaningless, but Peterson's suits do technically mean something. They were handcrafted for him by the LGFG fashion house, which I can't really read as anything except for let's go fucking go. So LGFG, from what I can tell, does nothing but stunt styling for C-list celebrities. Much of their work is similarly garish to Peterson's suits, just obvious and obnoxious and awful. Like, take a look at this random crypto millionaire. He seems like a totally standard, shady man. He looks like a friend who will betray you in a heartbeat. And he is dressed well. Culturally legible exactly as he should be.
Solid gold made by Ben Baller of Los Angeles. Damn.
Then look what this evil man does to him.
Oh, yeah. This is great.
Put it back, undo, Control-Z, restore to factory settings immediately. Say it with me, aesthetic terrorism. The end of this episode is deeply macabre. This grim reaper of beauty leaving the scene of his crime, looking like absolute shit himself, off to cause another credulous buffoon to dress infinitely worse. His name is Dimitri, and he will never be my friend. And the LGFG Fashion House official YouTube channel that he runs is incredible. Desperate for clout, starving for clout, will never have clout. We made this jacket and it went viral. 67 views, nothing. 1 month later, it's almost hit 160 views, mostly because I can't stop watching it. Dimitri made these suits for free as a gift to Jordan Peterson to try to get his attention and attain free marketing through shameless sycophantic flattery. The reason Jordan Peterson wears these suits now is not because he subjectively thinks that they are beautiful. He wears the suits because they are specially made for him, they're free, and they are about him.
They made me a dozen suits.
Yeah?
One for each rule from 12 Rules for Life.
The idea was to make it meaningful to him.
They sent a little deck of creative ideas.
Dimitri literally gave Jordan a picture book that explains which rule from his famous self-help book each suit represents and the tacky methodology they employed to evoke this. This suit is based on Rule 2, which is about treating yourself in a way that either takes you to heaven or hell. So it's heaven or hell. The red means hell, the blue means heaven. You can tell because hell is fire and heaven is clouds.
Heaven and hell. And this, by the way, is wool from a sheep, and this is wool from a goat.
Goat, of course.
Sheep like Jesus, goat like devil. This piece of what alleges to be formal menswear is severely disinterested in the medium of formal menswear. Instead of even attempting to speak any coherent cultural language, it just uses CinemaSins Easter egg logic to justify its existence. It's fashion for people who don't know anything about fashion. It's like someone going, oh, I don't listen to rap music, but I do like Eminem because he talks about real things and I can understand what he's saying. It's worse than Noam Chomsky's nonsense sentence. It's someone screaming in public at the top of their lungs, and when you ask them why they screamed, all they say is, I feel uncomfortable when we are not about me. The blunt stupidity of these clothes is so offensive to me. Why is this suit so ugly? Oh, because it's his logo just printed on himself. Why is this suit so ugly? Well, because he talks about Orthodox Christianity, so they just took Orthodox Christian paintings, rendered them into 2D PNGs, and printed them grid style on a dinner jacket. Like, that's what fashion is. You're like tattooing the word that you want people to say about you on your forehead. Look at this suit where they just print your full name into the suit. Like, that's it.
So no guessing here whose might it be. It's actually written on the suit. Your name is written on it. How great is that? Greatest invention when it comes to suits.
Another one of Peterson's self-referential free suits that you might recognize is this powder blue pimp suit with the Elon Musk heads on the tie.
Really intentionally, it was supposed to be like a pimp suit.
These are tiny Elon Musk heads.
This is called Jordan Peterson's Twitter suit. Obviously, this has pretty much no social meaning outside of a self-congratulatory explanation that it invites you to ask them to tell you. That's what these suits are for, right? It's for you to go, what are you wearing? And then they go, it's about me.
You have a two-tone suit going on.
Can
You're
I tell
a
you
wild
about this
man.
suit?
Please do.
Okay.
Why don't we take a listen to Dimitri himself explain it from his repugnant podcast set for a show that no one will watch.
The Jordan Peterson Twitter suit. That one has a really great story behind it.
You know, if you have any sort of imposter syndrome that you deal with in your life, I just want to point out to you that this man is employed in aesthetic design.
It's the most controversial, let's say, suit that I've made for JP. Here's what's interesting about it. So this suit was a gift for me.
I didn't edit that. The audio's just broken.
I wanted a suit that really infuriated JP's haters. Inside of the suits are actual screenshots of Twitter comments. All these hateful comments from these leftist idiots we put inside the suit, you know, to kind of make fun of them, because I kind of figured, like, if this suit goes out in public, if he, decides to show it off, then these people are going to like start, being, but they're already inside the suit. So we're just making fun of them.
So first of all, this is literally the R-slur comic. I did something ugly and obnoxious. That's ugly and obnoxious. Got you. But deeper than that, to think it's a good idea to walk around in this, literally draping yourself in resentful, childish, masturbatory memes about yourself, and then going to work. I'm reminded of that clip of Logan Paul. It's weird. I don't know anything about Logan Paul, but from the Big Joel thing, I think, about Logan Paul, where that clip where Logan Paul is just standing on the street, pointing at a billboard of himself to strangers, going like,
he finds out there's a billboard with his big old face on it, so he goes and stops people and is like, look at that. That's me.
Do you know who that is?
That's you.
I mean, that's really all of these suits, but the Twitter one in particular is literally designed from a place of resentment for people you don't respect, for people you hate.
I wanted a suit that really aggrieved the woke. I also wanted it to be like resoundingly aggravating to the left.
This is a horrible aesthetic and spiritual practice. Celebrating degeneracy, honoring half-hearted hatred, identifying yourself with your ability to intentionally upset people by being ugly on purpose, dancing in the ashes of culture, not out of loyalty to your divine death instinct, but only because you like that this is about you, and now it will continue being about you. Instead of learning and speaking cultural language, this is how you're gonna use the medium of fashion? Walking around in a portable shrine to yourself like a baby?
It's immature. It's antisocial.
Antisocial.
Yeah, it's really, like literally, it's antisocial. It's like, your clothes aren't exactly for you.
Yeah.
For someone who's grown increasingly comfortable using the word Luciferian to describe your enemies, you should consider erring more conservative with things that you don't understand. What could possibly better fit the idea of Luciferian postmodern nihilism than literally wrapping yourself in a self-celebratory shawl of your own subjectivity, justifying it by saying, I like it, it makes sense to me, it's about me, someone made it for me, and it pisses off my haters.
JP donned the suit. He thought it was so funny.
Jordan, you're letting this tasteless worm-tongued temptress beguile you into dancing on the grave of your ancestors because you're so weak to flattery.
You go talk to someone who knows what they're doing. Go talk to an actual tailor.
You know, through a biblical lens, fashion is at least as old as the emergence of self-consciousness and is somewhat inherently tied to it. After Adam and Eve bit the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, the first thing they did as the self-conscious human beings that we are today is cover themselves. You see how there's some humility and sacred purpose and identifying with the human community there? You understand how that is how you announce that you are different from God instead of building a Tower of Babel that has your fucking face on it? With all of your intellect, all of your takes on art, all of your supposed respect for tradition, you elect to bask in a pool of your own semen in public like this? You hear me, Jordan? If you care about art and God and connecting men to their cultural traditions like you say you do, perchance you should wield your considerable resources to draw attention to something that isn't yourself. Get some tailoring for grown-ups. You look ridiculous.
I think I'm an addict, want the world and I'ma have it. I'm so fucking dramatic, got all my bones up in the attic and I dance them all around like a marionette.
There's something really attractive about this particular era of fashion history, of art history overall, honestly. This kind of arts and crafts movement throughout Britain in the late 19th, early 20th century, and in America, this dress doctor era where everyone's just treating to make the small things in life beautiful cost efficiently by adherence to universal principles, like as a moral good, as a democratic good. I really believe this. Like, I believe it's a real democratic value, a real social value to like do your part to make things beautiful, to use shared language to make things beautiful and not just stubbornly, you know, use art and expression, creative freedom, freedom of speech to like defiantly, childishly do whatever you want and justify it endlessly without any respect towards tradition or others or communication, coherence. I mean, it's just one of those important things about art. Living democracy, becoming an adult, is realizing it's not all up to you and that you have to change in response to society. You have to change in response to that which appears outside of you and realize, you know, who you were the whole time is really more connected to everything that's outside of you. Who you are isn't necessarily exactly up to you. This makes you part of the world. And this expert taste era was just this moment where we were really just writing it down. Like, here's what to do. Here's what it is. And so what I was kind of suggesting, basically I kind of advocate for a return to the expert taste era with this kind of revivified postmodern spirit. I'm calling it the existential expert taste You know, it's like an actual like philosophical existential conundrum. I'm not existential like we might die, but like existential like Kierkegaard and shit. Like God is dead. We now know that beauty is not objective, and as such we have infinite choice and the burden of meaninglessness. And so like the solution is essentially like a leap of faith. Pick who your elites are. Pick your experts. But then care about what the experts write down, even though we know we might be constructing these rituals arbitrarily, you know? Still know that it matters a lot to commit yourself to one of these gods. It matters a lot to become part of something, to be someone identified with culture, to have culture, to be part of culture. And that it's not stupid and gay and lame for you to do stuff because your friends do it, or do stuff because you want to be liked, or because you want to be cool. Those are okay reasons to do something, so long as that, you know, nebulous cool factor is tied up in some sort of meaningful identity, some meaningful social identity, some meaningful shard of culture that you're like, I want to be part of that. What do they call it? It's like something about love, where it's like love compels you, like kind of forces you to act against your own volition. Love calls you to be something other than what you are. It challenges you, and yet you want to be compelled by love. You want to be subsumed into something larger. It's also like religion. It's like what God is, right? It's like God is like, I identify you as part of me. You're a child of me. You're not all up to you. You are under my dominion. And yet we're supposed to be happy about it, or we are happy about it. Has this been out of focus for like the whole time? I can never tell.